Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Software Plaza podcast. I'm Twain Taylor, editor at Software Plaza. And if you like what you hear on this podcast, go and check out our website, softwareplaza.com, and see all of the other conversations we've had over the past 3 years or so. There's also other stuff happening on the website, like event coverage and articles and a whole bunch of other stuff. So definitely go and check it out. I'm excited today to welcome the guest on the show, who's Kyle Campos. He's the CTPO at CloudBolt. He's the Chief Technology and Product Officer at CloudBolt. Kyle, you have a lot on your plate, it seems like, integrating product and technology. Uh, how's it going? It's great to have you on the show. Tell us a bit about yourself and just your journey to CloudBolt.
Yeah, appreciate being here with you. Yeah, happy to get into it here. Yeah, my background is primarily through engineering. Started back in the dot-com boom era when I was 18 years old. Joined a startup in Santa Barbara, California, and worked all the way through the sort of engineering ranks, started doing tech leadership positions a lot through the sort of DevOps transformation curve and cloud operations and cloud ops when that started taking off. Moved into the sort of PaaS ecosystem, did a lot of work with like Cloud Foundry ecosystems, things like that. All along the journey, kind of a pretty varied experience with startups versus larger enterprises, and kind of kept bouncing back and forth between the two. You kind of get uh, um, each side has their own set of challenges, and I didn't, for whatever reasons, I didn't get bogged down in any one set of them for too long. Went to the
Mhm.
other end of the spectrum. Um, And in my most recent role prior to this one is where a lot of that sort of product and engineering started coming together for me. I was leading uh, both the engineering and product team at a platform level, so I'm platform engineering constructs for an enterprise, and started building my own FinOps teams as well out of that, and was carrying kind of a mantra of sinking complexity into a platform and surfacing simplicity for our teams, and both
Mhm.
on the sort of orchestration and operations side to the product capabilities, also on the FinOps side and day two ops and all those types of things, like how that fits in a kind of platform engineering construct. And then in walks CloudBolt opportunity, where both sides of my life, they had product lines in with the cloud orchestration side, and then they had somewhat recently acquired a FinOps product as well. Um, and so I was building in this space, and had a lot of thoughts around how the convergence of those two disciplines and orchestration and FinOps uh, um, needs to happen, both selfishly for my own need for it to give the business value they needed, but also where I thought the market was struggling and kind of stuck in that regard, and there was not a lot of great commercial options and products that were helping bring those two worlds together. And so that was the kind of exciting opportunity at CloudBolt, was to kind of build that
Mhm.
future and solve that problem. So 2 years later, here I am at CloudBolt doing exactly that.
Wow, that's quite a journey. Really interesting blend of product and technology there across your career. Do you think that's something that's more suitable to just startups, or do you think combining technology and products should be something that even the larger companies should strongly consider?
I mean, at a larger company, there's always problems of collaborative problems between product and technology, a lot of finger pointing, a lot of like just out of sync execution, and both sides blame each other for a lot of their problems for sure. So um, that problem definitely has to be solved.
Mhm.
If in some ways you can use Conway's law to your benefit here, in that if you smash the orgs together and you say, all right, you are reporting into the same line, you have the same incentive structure, like we are one team, that obviously makes it easier to not have any external factor that you're blaming for why a certain feature isn't succeeding or anything like that. It's all inside the same team. So that's certainly, I see that trend happening in certainly small companies, mid-sized companies as well. Um,
Mhm.
it's harder to do that in larger enterprises, but it just means you have a bigger problem to solve, which is how do you kind of embed those functions
Yeah.
um, on a day-to-day collaborative level in an effective way.
Mm.
It's challenging at scale to do that for sure.
Mm. Yeah, so I kind of hear you saying the principle is kind of needed, the idea is necessary, but then the how and the implementing it is more complex the larger the
Yes.
company gets.
Yeah,
Interesting.
for sure. Yeah.
About CloudBolt. So yeah, obviously, just read about StormForge, the acquisition. CloudBolt acquired StormForge. When was it? Was it a few months ago or more than that? A year ago?
Yeah, we beginning of April is when we announced that. So it's
Oh, okay.
hasn't been too long. Yeah.
2 months. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we actually featured StormForge about 2 years ago.
Oh, really?
Some of
Yeah.
their team, they were on the podcast talking to us about FinOps and what they do, and the title of the podcast was something on the lines of StormForge can cut your Kubernetes bill by 30%.
Right.
Quite a bold claim, I thought. Uh, but it was interesting, just the approach that they took, and it was quite an insightful conversation. I want to talk a bit about just the acquisition, the background, and you mentioned a bit about CloudBolt, what it was, and then it acquired StormForge for FinOps. But tell us a bit about what was CloudBolt before the acquisition and now after the acquisition story itself.
Yeah. Yeah. So really this started as a partnership between CloudBolt and StormForge because of the alignment in our approaches. So
Mhm.
on the CloudBolt side, prior to acquisition, I mentioned we have this orchestration product and we had this FinOps product, and I was very dissatisfied with the optimization sort of product market and options available for our customers as far as how optimization is executed. So you essentially have this old paradigm and a new paradigm we're trying to usher in here. In the old one, FinOps products generate recommendations, and they may even create Jira stories for engineering, right? And that's kind of as
Mhm.
far as they go. Like, hey, it's not our job like to do anything about it, but we're just letting you know what the waste is, right? And so
Mhm.
it's kind of this report factory paradigm where all
Yeah,
it's doing is giving you different views of the problem, but
yeah.
it's not
More alerts.
doing anything to help solve that problem other
Yeah.
than telling engineering, here's what we think, browbeating engineering, or like, here's what we think you should be doing, and you're taking too long, right? So there's
Mhm.
that whole paradigm of product execution, and because of our engineering uh uh you know background and product line, it was like we can do more here to actually orchestrate from that recommendation. We call this the insight to action loop, right? So like
Mhm.
being able to continuously optimize means that action loop needs to be automated and evented from all those insights, so that waste the waste signal comes in or what the opportunity is, and that triggers what you've configured to remediate. And then you just have this continuous loop of optimization going. So in CloudBolt, we announced in October the release of that product line and that sort of capability set in our FinOps product, where you can go through and add orchestration policies and actions. You can think of these as kind of like simplified blueprints of, like, if this waste signal is detected, here's what we do about it. For a whole host of sort of the most common waste signals that come up in a FinOps context, idle instances and things like that, right? But we wanted to see our customers start gaining traction in the automation area here, like get comfortable doing this. If the latest state of FinOps report that came out maybe a couple months ago now, showed pretty clearly the pain in the industry of everyone is still stuck on this wait, like all we have is reports. And so workload optimization is the number one issue coming into this FinOps X conference here in a couple weeks, June 2nd in San Diego, where I'll be talking at that conference on this. So there's going to be a lot of other conversation around this as well. So we partnered with StormForge because they had that continuous optimization approach inside of a Kubernetes context, right? They were real-time observation of real-time performance dynamics in a Kubernetes cluster using intelligent recommendations based off of their AI ML models. And then with their applier, turning that around into real deployed change, right? And in effect, taking that insight to action lead time down to close to zero, right? Instead of the sort of old paradigm report factory, and maybe somebody does something about it 60 days from then, right? Maybe. Most often never, but maybe they do something, months later. And that wait time creates so much waste in our industry. Just a massive amount of waste. And as I'll kind of demonstrate later, also reliability problems when you're under provisioned, right? And waste on the human side of reacting to that. So we partnered with them because they had they had a great approach there, was well in line with our thinking. And as that started to resonate in our customer base, and we're like, hey, we want to take that same approach across more and more areas of the technology landscape, not just Kubernetes, but think that's the winning approach, we think, for more and more workload types. The acquisition conversation started, like, could we go faster together, right? And instead of just partnering here. So that's what brought us together. I think it was really the market demand and customer demand and interest around like this approach, which is really just an acknowledgement that the old paradigm is dead. The report factory and manual actions doesn't work. We don't really need any more data to tell us that doesn't work. We need a new way that does work, and that's what we're trying to usher in here.
All right, really interesting story there. And will you be combining the two platforms into one, or will they be separate? What's the plan?
Yeah, so today we integrate so that you can see when I walk through the sort of Kubernetes optimization, dash, we bring that into our current FinOps products. Post acquisition, we're working on kind of merging that entire experience into the same product line, and bringing all this sort of Kubernetes cost allocation views into that StormForge optimization view. So like kind of giving you, the best Kubernetes FinOps experience from not just reporting and visibility side, but also the optimization side.
Yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the issues that you were mentioning, which is you were mentioning report factory, and just a lot of Jira tickets, a lot of information and less action, and that's something that StormForge, helps deal with. And talk to us a bit more specifically about the kind of recommendations and some of the most common examples of where budget gets wasted, what do your customers see as they sign up, as they come on to the platform, StormForge, CloudBolt? What are some of the first things they see? Oh, we've got to plug these gaps. There's lots of, budget leaking through here. We need to fix this right now. Give us some of those examples.
Yeah. So there's a couple of phases that are common, whether it's Kubernetes or non-Kubernetes. Which is sort of, the early stage is sort of one of expediency, where there's a bias towards provisioning and just getting stuff out and working, from a product view or maybe even an ops view, right? Like, okay, the lights are green, at least from a functionality perspective, but from an efficiency perspective, that's like way buried in the backlog of like who's got time to really think about that. And so then you start and at small company scales that may be um not a big enough pain point yet, because what was
Mhm.
expedient and fast to get out isn't driving enough cost to really worry about
Mhm.
efficiency levels. You're really just tuned to like, is it working at all?
Yeah.
Once you get into, and I'd say these problems really start becoming big pain points when you're like somewhere around maybe $10 million a year of spend, is where this starts to become like okay, you can't carry 50% waste level of your entire like cloud spend. Like, if you're reporting out, yeah, we're spending $10 million a year in the cloud, and because we have no eye on efficiency, we think that's probably double what it should be. That's not a very good storyline to have, right? So that first milestone is that sticker shock point where like, okay, we can't carry on like this. um
Mhm.
Most companies then transition to some form of like tiger team reaction to that, right? Some
Mhm.
manual human thing, which is like, all right,
Mhm.
somebody give me a report of just what the heck is eating up all of this cost, right? And like, give me some reports. And often in a cloud native context with like Kubernetes as an example, there's not a lot of great reports on that to tell you like what's driving cost here, right? In AWS, that might be one, EKS line, and it's like, I don't know, that we got, 200 applications deployed out in that. I don't know who to go ask to do anything about it, right? So in cloud native context, the visibility isn't great. Outside of that, you may have just other big buckets of spend that aren't allocated in any way, where you're like, well, we know what the number is, we just don't know where to start getting any optimization out of it, right? And so you start getting this top down human exploration and kind of like cave splunking down into the details of like, all right, well, somebody allocate this now for me, who am I going to blame, right? um and then, somebody might have a great idea. All right, I've heard about FinOps, and so let's get a product line in here that specializes in this and help us navigate that exploration.
Mhm.
um you may still find allocation problems because you're not labeling workloads and things in any meaningful way. So you still got these big buckets of spend, but now you start getting these recommendations getting auto-generated, right? And now you got a whole nother form of analysis to do. Like, are those real? Are those meaningful? Can we actually do that? And they're still not touching Kubernetes at all, because there's not a lot of intelligent recommendations anywhere that are coming out for Kubernetes, right? So you just start to get this sense of this human, toil and pain that is involved of like looking at every bit of insight. Um, and look, we're happy to walk people through the journey. We like to skip a lot of that pain steps. Like don't you don't have to go from nothing to every one of those pain points. Learn from others so that you can skip some of those.
Mhm.
Um, and in that is like, how do you get to a clear cost allocation of that, so you know where spend drivers are from.
Mhm.
Then walking through like, all right, let's define what optimal is so that you know what's waste and what's not. In the Kubernetes context, that is either a company's gonna, in an R&D perspective, maybe have no requests, limits, settings of any kind, right? Who's got time for any of that. So you're just kind of provisioning out wildly. In production, maybe you have really restrictive sets that are generating a lot of operational noise and a lot of pages for you to go. You're under provisioned. Could be any combination of those factors. Um, People then might shift to trying to get humans to set requests and limits, off every workload. Like, hey, pick a number that makes sense for you, and you know that's going to change every week, every day, in some fashion. So we try to get people to skip that and say, don't bother setting those. Let our AIML learn the behavior that your workloads actually have there. It will give you the right recommendations, and you can build confidence through those recommendation sets in any number of ways, manually apply them if you'd like. But ultimately, we want to get you to the point, whether it's Kubernetes or VMs or anything like that else, that you've done all of this sort of waste tuning and guardrails to get to your comfort level, that you let auto applies happen there, and it remediate. And then we're reporting back to you. The best form of a report is us telling you how much money you've already saved, not what's possible, not just what's possible if humans did extraordinary things, but what's happening every minute of the day through intelligent, automated sources that you don't have to have humans manning the desk on, right? It's just working for you while you sleep, so to speak. So that's kind of the curve, and we try to get people to avoid that human toil bubble where it's like, all right, we have nothing, but I need an army of people now to go do a bunch of things. You definitely don't need the army. We try to get people to skip that step and say use intelligent agents and products that help you navigate that and get you the outcome you need.
Yeah, it kind of sounds too good to be true, but then obviously, we've had StormForge already on this show and we talked to them about it, and I'm sure now they've added even more features, and now with the two platforms
Yeah,
combined, it's even more happening. It's actually probably a
yeah,
good segue now to kind of get into a little product walkthrough or demo that
oh sure.
prepared for us to kind of show us in action what you just described for us.
Sounds good. I'll share my screen here.
All right, yeah, see your screen there.
Yeah, so I'll kind of navigate through some of the high level here. So after you deploy out, the agent starts bringing in data here. You first see this overview over your all your clusters here. That's giving you an optimization score based off of your real utilization and provisioning levels, right? So how well optimized you are at a CPU and memory level. And then you kind of have these two recommendation summaries and impacts here that are saying, okay, your current request level, have you provisioned for this many cores and this amount of memory, and here's your running cost. Post all of our recommendations. Here's kind of the day after view of that, breaking that savings down. And you can get into details here that show both sides of this. And this part I actually really love, which is because of we're not just approaching this from a FinOps perspective, we're approaching this from an engineering perspective as well. And there's two sides of this sort of efficiency coin. Um, um, there is savings on the dollar side, yes, and that's here on the left side with the waste here. So the over provisioned workloads and how much you could be savings with applying our recommendations. But also there's the under provision side. This is the things that are causing engineering toil, pages in the night, all those types of things. So we actually are generating recommendations both directions. Like in this case, it's actually recommending you deploy more capacity here to avoid those performance concerns. So that's kind of like, that's a more honest approach, right? It's not only going one direction, it's bi-directional here and saying like, here's what's best for your workloads, whether that's provisioning more or less.
Mhm.
Then you start getting sort of the top offender views at a cluster, namespace, workload level of where all of those are at, and we can kind of start drilling in here to a particular deployment workload. So again, you get the specific summary view here at a workload level here, and this is a product catalog service application showing you what the impact is. And you can see in this particular case, we have automatic deployment off. So this might be a case where you're building trust of the recommendations, right? You're like, okay, this makes sense. You can apply it now through the applier.
Mhm.
You also have some other deployment techniques here, patching techniques they can do. But here you can really start to analyze the recommendation here, right? So you can see that pink line up here where your request level is set, and then this orange line is where our recommendation is, and everything in between that line is the running waste, right? That you are absorbing every minute of the day. So that gives you a pretty clear view of like of that workload. Same thing at a memory level. And then you can drill in to the recommendation here. Um, and you get a little bit more. This is an averaging out that CPU usage and request, so you get a little bit more consistent data view here that doesn't have like HPA factors and all that auto scaling that creates those big dips and spikes. You can get into view of that particular containers as well. You can see you get some instance category recommendations here around what type of workload this is, and this is in this case is recommending compute optimized. You get into here on the patches side I mentioned. So if you're not using our auto applier here, you can actually do the patching through your own GitOps flow, integrate with CI/CD, bring in canary style deployments, all of those types of things, right? So we really like to, part of our differentiation here is we don't want you to change your workflow for us. And I think a lot of product lines and a lot of competitors force that, like, okay, your whole engineering model has to change. And we try to adapt and integrate into sort of best practices. We certainly try our best not to encourage any anti-patterns and make that easy. We actually try to make the right thing the easy thing here. So that's integrating into good standard GitOps flows and CI/CD patterns. Same thing with our what we call our cloud native actions and recommendations, whether that's VM right sizing or things like that. You can invent out and use, uh, um, any sort of GitHub actions or any other CI/CD process that you have to manage that if you don't want our auto applier to do that yourself.
Mhm.
On the settings, this is where you can get really fine grained around setting guardrails and things like that that help build you that confidence, right? And so first we have these sort of optimization goals and these sort of pre-configured settings to help you navigate this. It's pretty typical. You're kind of asking like the typical journey. It's pretty typical that customers in non-production environments are going to bias for savings profile, right? Like, okay, I can I could handle uh, performance problems in R&D better than I could in production, right? So optimize for savings. And then as you get closer to production, reliability takes on more of the concern, right? We don't want to impact end users with any of our optimizations here. And then, somewhere in between, you get a balanced view of that as well. And you can do that across like every object, abstraction level in Kubernetes constructs, from cluster down to namespace workload level, right? Via annotations to kind of carve that out. So there's kind of an inheritance model there that we observe, so that you can get really specific on, hey, this workload type we want to treat differently than or in some unique way versus the namespace.
Yeah, this is amazing. I love this feature.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you got agency and control over the recommendation schedule, what its learning period is, control over, we were talking about some of the deployment options here, some thresholds that you want to set that kind of gate deployment as well, so that it's deploying safely and per your guidelines. Some awesome reliability controls, like how do us able to help you responding to like events here, and like being able to help recover on reliability side, so we can have these memory bump up periods to be able to add memory allocation to particular workloads. So a lot of
Mhm.
flexibility there. Again, like it's not just about cost savings, but also about reliability as well. This is where you get into some min-max views of requests and limits here, where you can set some guardrails around that for default containers or specific containers as well. Again, annotation examples of how to do that.
Mhm.
Full integration with HPA as well. We work, again, as far as best practices, we work with it, not against it. We also have added, since the last time you've seen, some nice Java integrations here. So a lot of our customers were running into Java complexity, and like, well, I can't do anything about this because of heap settings, right? And we have to look at what are the optimal heap settings before we actually resize the pod itself. And so in this case, we actually are making heap recommendations as well that can get applied. So then you can get more optimal workload level settings that allow you to reap the benefits there. So that was out of response. I mean, Java is still the dominant
Mhm. Yeah.
workload type in a lot of enterprises. So this
Mhm.
is a big differentiator for us as well.
Mhm.
Uh, and then finally, just integrations with pod scheduling and affinity as well for node affinity. So a lot of flexibility there in how you set this. And again, the goal here is to I say this often in an engineering context, which is codify your concerns, and we expose a lot of that to say like, oh, what are you concerned about? Okay, let's apply it here in the actual recommendation and deployment configuration, so
Mhm.
that you're not paralyzed with fear, like, well, I'm stuck. And that's where a lot of teams are, quite honestly. They're stuck with like all of the edge cases and like, well, what about this? What about that? You can codify that here, and the system will honor that. Our product will honor that. The goal here is to just get you unstuck, and like, don't be blind, don't willingly have the blinders on as far as what the waste level is. And then once you know what it is, codify your concerns and these optimization settings so that you can get change starting to flow into your system.
Amazing. Yeah, it was really cool. So many features really that were quite fascinating. I love the goals. Like I said, also like the one that you mentioned where not just reduces resources, but also
Right.
provisions to ones that are under provisioned, and that was really cool. Also, that the automatic deployments that you can customize them to be turned on or off. By the way, are they by default turned on?
No, by default they're off. So by default you'll get the recommendations
Okay.
side of it, and then you got to configure like how do you want to apply these, either manually, which obviously sometimes that's an okay starting point, but
Mhm.
certainly if you're at scale, you gotta get to the auto deployment. It's in
Yeah.
some form, whether it's our system doing it or your own GitOps flow that's doing it.
And you probably want to keep a few of those important workloads maybe for you to manually configure and make changes to, but maybe the bulk of them you want to
Yep.
have automatic. That totally makes sense.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think doing that, that auto deploy in like an R&D context where you're biasing for that savings profile, right, is a great place to build that confidence. Like, okay, we'll make sure we don't disturb, production, but in non-prod, get aggressive, and then you can start building real live trust in the system, right?
Yeah, yeah. For people listening and watching this, I'm imagining there's two kinds of people when it comes to like thinking about Kubernetes spend. One who have no clue that they are overspending and they think they're doing fine. Uh,
Yep.
because their systems are reliable, their bosses are not complaining, so everything is good. So that's
Yep.
thinking one group. But then I think there's a second group that knows they're overspending, but they don't want to open that can of worms because they don't know how to like deal with it, and
Yes.
they don't know
That
where
is
to
that.
start, and they don't know how much or where the waste is. They just know that there's waste, and they don't know where and how to find it and where to start. What would you say to these two groups of people listening?
Yeah, I might even introduce the third there, which is kind of a dirty little secret in the FinOps space.
Okay.
But yeah, part of the dynamic, the thing that I was thinking about here is in some cases, it's it can be embarrassing sometimes, for certain leaders to be like, imagine a world they've been building for years, and then we come along and say, hey, 40% waste level of your thing. And then you do the math of 40% waste over the prior 2 years, and you're like, okay, you want me to you want me to go tell my boss
Yeah.
that I've been, and that can get uncomfortable. That can get uncomfortable. Um, which is, obviously we're sensitive to that fact, and
Mhm.
this is kind of like the old, there's saying, no good deed goes unpunished type of effect here. It's like, well, is it better for me just to not even know what's happening so that we can just go on? Ultimately, I think it shows, the right form of leadership to say, like, no, we're at the scale where our efficiency level level matters. And
Yeah.
it's not about casting blame on any,
Mhm.
it's not like engineers are trying to waste money. They're trying to optimize for the goals they were given, which is get a product out in 60 days and make sure we don't have any customer complaints, make this customer happy, that customer happy. So they're optimizing with the inputs they have, right? Um, what we want to do is give them more inputs to do the right thing, right? And expand that view of what optimal looks like. So saying, okay, now optimal is just not hitting our SLAs, our SLOs, which is on the performance side, which is important. Now we want to introduce an expanded scope that says, how cost efficient can we be along that path, right? And you're going to need intelligent systems to be able to doing that continuously on your behalf, because you can't possibly expand that scope and expect a human to manually do that, not at any form of scale that matters. So try to kind of bring down any sort of um you know um indictments of people's behavior. The goalposts move, and so that's just part of growing up, and businesses expanding their goal sets here. We just want to give them tools that they want to use, that are having the impact they expect and are not causing them more pain. And I feel like in a lot of cases, both in the Kubernetes optimization space and in the broader FinOps ecosystem, that the tool sets people have had at their disposal have not really helped businesses hit the outcomes they want, right? And I honestly, I feel like FinOps is at this point of our market journey here, has a lot to prove to executives at large businesses, that the doing the right thing in a FinOps mindset is having the business impact that is promised. And I think that latest State of FinOps report is exposing a little bit of that tension, right? Which is workload optimization. It's still top of the basket, or top of the stack, as far as problems that need to be solved. And it's been that way for several years now. why isn't this a solved problem yet? So there's a form of urgency there that I think everyone's starting to feel.
Mm.
And we want to be able to solve for that so that, the personas you mentioned, they can feel confident that I don't want you to just tell me there's huge problems and then leave me in the wilderness to solve, right? Like you gotta, yes, I need both sides of that coin. Show me the problem so that I can then repair it. And then that de-risks a lot of that. Hey, I'm gonna go to my CFO and say, like, I think I can cut 30 to 40% of our costs here, and him or her not say, why didn't you do that a year ago? Like, where were
Mhm.
you last year? Right. Um, so we actually have forms of these are so-called like hero reports that show like, hey, no, this is the positive impact you're having every
Yeah,
day, right? We want to be
yeah,
able to reward that,
yeah.
you know, give people more pain than they are already managing.
Makes sense. Makes sense. But as we wind down, for someone to really get started with this, is there like a quick and easy way they could
Yeah.
get started and like figure out, okay, this is exactly a number estimate for me about how much spend is getting wasted and where, and I can get this number in like a few hours or a day or something.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, for Kubernetes, I'd say go straight to the website, StormForge website. You can links off CloudBolt's website. It's a free trial you can get started with and get the recommendations flowing, and you can start seeing that safely. You don't have to apply anything. So we make that pretty painless for people to just start right away and get an idea of what that is. We also recently announced the pay-as-you-go model with AWS, which is great. So for EKS, you can add on our optimized live product there, and as you start to roll that out, you can just pay for the scope that as you go. No annual upfront commitments. You can just start paying, as you're starting to roll that out in waves, right? So even beyond the free trial as you get into production. So that'd be my recommendation. Go install the free trial and see what you think. Give us feedback. My team loves to get the feedback and jump on a call with those opportunities and see what we can do to have the impact that businesses are hoping for now.
Okay, cool. Sounds great. Just last question for you, Kyle, before we close up, is just to get to know you a bit. Usually, I would ask what would be your alternate career path, but actually, in your case,
Oh,
I was wanting to ask, about just which role most resonates with you. In
mm,
the sense that you're already doing like a product and a CTO
yeah,
role, but I'm sure that involves a bunch of different capabilities. Like there's training and teaching and coaching, that sort of thing. There's collaboration and the people aspect, and then there's obviously the tech aspect, and then there's the product aspect. There's the
yep,
market as well that you need to think of. So many of these. Where is your heart though? If you were to pick one of
yeah,
them, is most
yeah,
natural that you're most wired for, which
yeah.
hat you wear?
Yeah, great question. So I'm an engineer at heart. I've built my own startups. I think that's in my DNA through and through, and I enjoy when I have opportunity to be able to go deep with engineers and solve complex problems. Solving hard problems is the thing that gives me the most energy. Um, in the CloudBolt context, I don't think I'd be qualified to be a product leader in a lot of companies just because it's like, look, I'm not familiar with that market or something like that. In this one, I feel it's the right fit for me to have both of those hats because I'm like I said, I've both built products in both lanes, and I have a need to consume a product that works together with those. So this was really sweet spot as far as the market we're serving and my background. So this is kind of more of a special combination. But I think, if I imagine myself on a ranch in Colorado, what I would be doing in my free time, it would certainly be building, more on the engineering side, and building, new ways to solve complex problems. My brain's always operating in that mode. I can't turn that part of me off for sure.
It's quite fascinating. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for a wonderful conversation. You really,
Thank you.
really good detail about just what StormForge does and just the challenges in the market. Definitely a lot of comments coming from the trenches. Really valuable there. And good luck with all of the work ahead with integrating the two platforms, merging, and
Yeah,
come back after a year or so and tell us how it went and what you guys have been up to in the coming year.
awesome. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
And thanks to all of our listeners and viewers for tuning in. And we hope you'll join us for the next episode. Take care. Bye-bye.